Hello and welcome to my loft, and first of all I would like to say a big thanks for everybody who has left such nice comments for my YouTube channel. It really does help me to get on and do this, and of course it is very interesting that actually all the last people who have left comments, when I say people I mean men, because in the last 3 months every person who has watched my video as recorded by YouTube has been male. So there you go. Making trains is the most manly thing you can do. Now today I want to talk about track beds, and track beds have been done to death, and I'm going to do it to death a little bit more, but what I do want to do is show you exactly how I have been doing this. Not necessarily correct, but it's the way that my father told me what I should do all those years ago, about 13 years ago, and he said to me, you have to put this foam down, because this foam, one, will make it much quieter, two, less vibration, and so you're less likely to get derailment. And well, the first part, let's have a listen to the difference it makes. No, pussycat. It's someone coming up to see me. A track bed could be almost anything you like. I went onto the internet just to see various pictures, and you can see on this first picture just how dirty the track is and dark. It's got cinders and ash and oil that's dribbled onto the track by the station. Now, how deep are the sleepers? Well, again, you can find whatever you want. You can see on the colour picture and the black and white picture that the sleepers are almost buried under all the gunk that's come from the trains. You can see again on this 060, and the track is really dirty and rusty on the sides. Whenever you look, you can see sometimes you've got grass growing on. It all depends on, is it mainline or is it not. And you can see certainly in the later days of steam just how the ballast and all the cinders were covering up the sleepers. And you can see that I went onto the internet, and this last picture of this train track going through the woodland, you can just see, even though it's a modern, fairly modern picture, it is completely black. So even though my track doesn't look like many others, I have based it on what tracks truly were like in the past. Oh, and this is somewhat a bit of a mess because the tip has been worn out. Oh, and you can see I'm not the most skilled of modelers. Still, I think it does look a bit better. Really quite time consuming and, well, boring. Now, what I am going to be doing is building another track, and you can see the mess I was making earlier simply because I had already put the ballast down, and that has damaged these tips, which means it's such hard work. So my recommendation is, if you want to paint rust onto your rails, don't put the ballast down first. Once this tidies up, it will make it look almost good. Here you can see the difference where the paint ran out. Personally, I think it's much better painted black. Now this section here has to go over some metal pipes, and because I don't want it to go too high because the gradient gets too steep, what I've done is I've not been able to put any foam down, and the paper here, paper bricks, just are right on top of the pipes. That minimalizes the height, so sometimes things have to be done a bit differently. You can really see the train struggling up the gradient. Shooting down the hill. So I have got my can of Hammerites like this, spray paint, and since I have so much track, 1,400 feet of track, and I don't have the skill either to make everything really detailed or the patience, I found that just painting things black is a way to make it look a little better and not being too time consuming. So hopefully this should work. As easy as that. Oops. You can really see the contrast between what I have painted and what has not been painted. I much prefer that dirty, cold look where all the ashes have poured out onto the track. Now, if you don't actually finish off all of this can in one go, quite a lot of paint, all you do, turn it upside down, spray a little bit of paint out, and it will clean out the pipe, so it should be able to be used multiple times. So to clean it up, take off the extra paint, and then good old track rubber, and before you know it, it looks so much better. You can just see how hard it is sometimes to do my railway, because I'm on the floor, bending over, not very good light, hence a head torch, and actually it's a number of times I've actually pulled my back or some other muscle, leaning over, squeezing into tiny spaces. Sometimes you get a bit too much paint on the track, and this is the only time I would advocate a bit of sandpaper just to lightly scrape off any paint or residue. Look who's being a needy cat. This is how hard it is to film sometimes. Somebody banging my elbow. I think it's such a great noise going across these points. Unfortunately I've run out of foam, and the points had to be directly onto the wood. Such a good noise, but just think how loud everything would be if all these trains were not on foam. Sorry about the shake, some pussycat has just banged my elbow. They do say never work with animals. You can just hear that these points are much quieter because they're sitting on cardboard. This part of track bed I just quickly painted black because I didn't have the patience, and put a bit of polyfiller in between. Much quicker because I was just spending far too much time playing with my trains. Here on the bottom level you can see once again I've just painted everything in black. I've put a little bit of brown ballast down, hopefully to improve it. You can see some rails that are very rusty, which I just left outdoors for a few weeks. And it's not bad considering how little time I put into doing it. Just not so skilled. You can see, of course, the edge of the track I have put rust on the rail. This just makes it a bit more realistic than having these very shiny rails. Here I have my sidings, as you can see, just a little bit of sidings. And so for the track bed, put down the foam, a bit of polyfiller, and then a bit of grey gravel, just to make it slightly more realistic. And like everything else, I did this pretty quickly. No effort to paint the rails with rust, simply because this part I would never see, or at least not near up like this. This is the view of the sidings, the view that I would normally get to see sitting from here, and so there really isn't much point of spending a lot of effort to improve the sidings. Who knows, one day when I retire and have plenty of spare time, I might improve it a bit. But from this distance it looks more than good enough. Two of my tracks painted black because it gives that appearance of lots of ash. I have got on here some polyfiller because I have about 3 kilometers of wiring and I have to hide the wiring. You can see I've made a bit of a bodge job to try and put some paint down just to make it look a bit more realistic than pure black. This is my cliff railway, which I did a video on a few months ago. And one thing about this cliff railway, it cost not a single penny to make. So I didn't want to waste any money on foam for the underlay. And of course, it doesn't need it because the speed of this train means it doesn't make too much noise. And you can see all I've done is I've got some cheap old track and just pinned it to the rafter. This part here is my main storage place, my sidings, and you can see all I've done is I put the track straight onto the floorboards, mainly because they're hardly ever used, and if I do use them they're not moving at great speed, and so it doesn't need the foam. It saves a bit of money and just much easier for myself. This part of the track doesn't have any ballast on, and I've done it very simply because it has to be a removable section to get the boiler in. It'd be lovely to spend £2,000 to move the boiler, but I think that's a bit too much. On this section you can see that I've made quite an effort to improve the track bed. I have put rust on the side of the rails, but I had a bit of a problem that I put the ballast down first, and it's loose ballast, and it made it very difficult to paint the rust on. So a lesson to everyone: if you're going to paint rust on rails, do the rust first. You can see a bit of green and all the different colours. I think it just makes it slightly more realistic. And considering I've got 8 trains whizzing round, you can see that the foam does deaden the noise quite a bit. It is a bit loud with so many engines going at the same time. Along here you can see that I've even decided to put some black paint down in the middle of the track just to give that simulation of oil dribbled off low colours. You can see I bought some more track painter, but with so much track, making YouTube videos and just playing with my train means I don't have enough time to really improve everything. But one day it will be better than this. You can see here, of course, I've got the foam and insulation underneath just to dampen down the noise from the trains, but with some ballast put in, it does look reasonable. As you can see, I'm not the world's best detailed modeller. I have quite a lot of track, so I tend to rush things a bit too much and then sometimes regret it, but that's life. Anyway, hope to see you again in 2 weeks. Please do like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.